Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Over the President's Day weekend, me and my fiance wanted to smoke a brisket, but never tried to do that before. So I set out to research online for the tools that we would need and the methods and techniques that I would need to use to create a smoked brisket. So I looked at blogs about smoking meats to get information from people that already done that before, and also look at some YouTube videos to kind of get an idea of the process from start to finish. Apparently, smoking meats began in prehistoric times when people needed a way to preserve their meat. So the process dehydrate and also have a antibacterial property. But today, the more common use of the term smoking meats is referring to cooking in a low temperature over indirect flame with the addition of smoke from another source. First, I want to talk to you about the types of smokers that are available on the market today. There are 5 main types. There are electric, propane, charcoal, wood, and pellet. The type of smoker that you want to use depend on your preference, lifestyle, and budget. The electric smoker uses electricity to heat a rod, which heats up the wood to add the smoke to your meat. This is a good way if somebody is living in an apartment that don't really have the ability to use charcoal in their apartment, or they can't have open flames. It's easy to control the temperature with the touch of a dial, but this method gives the least amount of smoke. The propane smoker, I have a picture. The propane smoker is pretty similar to the electric one, except it uses gas to heat it up. And so this is good for people that are out in the rural area where they don't have electricity. The charcoal smoker is a cheaper alternative to propane and electric smoker, and charcoal is pretty cheap. If you go to Home Depot and try to buy some, it's pretty cheap. Some people believe that charcoal adds more flavor to the meat and compared to propane or electric smokers, but charcoal smoker requires a lot of attention, and you have to watch over it and start it and keep maintaining the fire so that the temperature doesn't drop. And it's not as accurate, so some people might have issues with that. The wood smoker is it gives the purest smoke flavor out of all the alternatives, but like the charcoal one, it also requires you to keep feeding the fire with wood, and you have to kind of watch over it for extended period of time. So because it requires more experience, it's not recommended for beginners like me. And finally, the pellet smoker is very similar to the wood smoker, except it uses compressed wood pellets, but it's easier because you can only need to add the wood pellets once in the beginning, and then you can just leave it there. The pellet is the heating source and is the smoking source, so you just need to add the pellet. But the only bad thing is that it's very expensive, or it's the most expensive of all 5 of the choices. So after choosing the smoker that works for you, you would need to choose the type of wood to use for the type of meat you're cooking. So if you're trying to cook a delicate food like fish or poultry, you would want to use a mild wood like alder or maple. If you're cooking something like poultry, you want to use like a medium wood, like medium fruit wood, like apple, pear, cherry, peach. And then if you're cooking dark red meat, you need to use, or you want to use the stronger wood flavor from hickory, pecan, and walnut. And you can also mix and match as you kind of get more experience with the different flavors, what you kind of prefer. So after looking at the different smokers and the type of wood that works best for us, we decided to use charcoal because we don't really have any issues with open flames, and we wanted a nice smoky flavor, and it's a pretty cheap way for a beginner to try it out for the first time. So after researching more on the type of charcoal smoker out there, we found that it was actually possible to use a regular round grill and to smoke it. So there's two methods to maintain the fire with a charcoal grill. This way you can use a snake method or a minion method. The snake method is where you would arrange charcoal in a round fashion around the grill and put a water pan and put the wood chunks on the top. And the minion method is where you would just keep adding more charcoal to it every hour. So we're cooking a brisket that was 7 pounds, so if you multiply, and it's recommended to cook it for 1.5 hours for each pound. So that's gonna be about 10 hours. So because of that, we chose the snake method. And for some reason, we decided to start at midnight. So when we woke up, we could wake up to a nice juicy brisket in the morning when you wake up, right? So that sounds like a good idea, right? Going to bed with a fire going on in the backyard. So it's kind of what you expect. And so when we woke up the next day, we found a overcooked brisket. But unfortunately, the bottom part was insulated by a layer of fat, so it was still soft and edible. The brisket did develop the bark that you're looking for, which is the nice dark, chewy, blackened outside layer that's full of smoky flavor. So it tastes smoky, but the whole thing wasn't all there. So it seems like the fire went up too fast. So when you're cooking brisket, you want it to be low and slow, but it was high and fast, so it was totally opposite of what you were supposed to be doing. So they said that it does take a few meals to get this process right. So just don't try to invite anybody important to your first brisket. So in the future, I will plan to continue researching more tips and tricks to cook smoking meats and becoming the next pitmaster of Toastmasters.
Even with the research objective, you can also relate that to food. A topic that like speak for you. It's for you and your lifestyle. So that's a good choice. From beginning, you give a very clear purpose of your speech. You give up the timeline. It happened last President date. You guys want to smoke a briskets, but you guys never done it before. So you go on and did all the research, and then you find out there's different tools that you can use, and then you also go on to type of wood that you can use on different type of meat, and you also tie it back to your story. So you give up the research material, and then you also tie it back to what happened. So give up more story about what was the result, what did you determine to use. Also, it was good to give us the pictures on all the type of smokers. You also give us the technique that you decide to use based on the tools that you wanted to use. But I think for us, we all want to try, or at least me, I want to try it too, but I just don't have a starting point, like where to start. So the picture that you provide us is very helpful. So for the eye contact, I think you are very comfortable with the audience here, and you move around with your eyes contact with each of the audience here. However, I feel that you can do more body language. You can move around the group, and I think this is a topic that everyone can relate to, because who doesn't like meat? So I will make it more relatable when you talk about the research. Be more relatable and maybe put in more humorous to it. Because when you go back to your story, there's humorous, that no one's against having breakfast, having briskets for breakfast. So that was very good, but add some more humorous onto your research also. For the volume, I think you are very good on the speech. You pause on the right time. However, maybe just give a more various on the tones, because you kind of speak on the monotones. Okay, and also, let me see here. So you, I think overall this speech meet the objective. You did all the research from the tools, the wood that you use, and technique that for each type of cut of the meat. But I would suggest you to maybe provide some of the link that you go through. Like you told us that you went to YouTube to look at some of the videos, and also different blog with, I'm sure they will have stories and different scenario, different kind of meat that they cooked. Maybe provide us with those information. So maybe at least we can try it next time. Okay, and side look, please don't give us anything related to food during lunchtime. That's about it. Yeah, it's very good research. Thank you.